Symbolic is one of my favorite metal records ever. And I believe it was on your 28th birthday
That's
you
right. Yeah.
recorded. What do you remember generally about like the writing and recording process of that record?
With that album, individual, it was kind of the polar opposite of individual thought patterns because individual, there was a looming deadline that was coming pretty quick for Chuck. And so we had to put that album together in, I always think it was about 3 weeks or so of, solid jamming. And I remember thinking at the times, wow, we put this album together in 3 weeks, like rehearsing and all that stuff. That's amazing. And now I look back at that and just, I've said this before, I think that's adorable. Getting 3 weeks to work on a record, my God, that's amazing. A lot of times I am learning the album as I'm on the plane flight to the session, or I'm driving up from San Diego to LA for the session. I'm listening to the demos for the first time of the album I'm about to go record, kind of things. And so done that with Death Clock a number of times, let me tell you, and Brandon Blackicon and things like that.
Wow.
So where the first time I'm playing the drums for songs are when I'm actually tracking them. And so that has had to create this kind of this sort of level of expertise, I don't know, but where you have to make songs sound like they've been lived in for months and months and months, and just not where you're like, you have 2 hours to get this song together and make it sound like it has been lived in for and loved and fussed over and all the parts just detailed and worked out. You have 2 hours to learn this song and record it. And then after that, you got another 2 hours for the next song, and then another 2 hours for the next song, and then so on and so forth until you got 20 songs recorded for this record, whatever it might be. That's kind of a lot of the approaches that I've had to take, and so it kind of started with individual being, hey, we had 3 weeks to put this thing together, and for Symbolic, and I do believe that this is apparent on Symbolic, we got a lot of time to work on all those tracks, and that's why for me, I've said this before, the individual thought patterns kind of sounded like a bowl in a china shop in terms of like taste and groove and feel. It just sounds like rushed and hurried and kind of thing for me. And that's why Symbolic, it settled a little bit. It kind of, all the songs just kind of sat, they were able to get a little more of a groove together, not just pushed and just intense. The songs had a little bit of breathing room, I guess, so that's the difference there, because we got a number of months to put Symbolic together, 6 months, 9 months, something like that. But I remember, I think we started tracking the album on my 28th birthday. We'd spent, my whole 27s taking care of Symbolic writing. And I remember throwing my back out the day before we went in to record. And that was like probably the first time I ever did that, threw my back out. And I could not walk. I could not move. I could not, the only thing that I could do was play drums. It didn't affect my drumming, but I had my drum tech at the time, Steve Good, on one shoulder, and I had Chuck on the other shoulder, just like helping me off the drum throne and get me into the control booth when we're done recording. And it's like I'm sitting in this just like cockamamie position and checking out the songs, like, is that good? Okay, it's good. Let's go take care of the next one. And so that whole few days of recording probably took 4-5 days to record, which was pretty luxurious back in those days. A lot of times I had 1 day to record drums, 2 days, kind of thing. And afterwards, many times you have to record, the entire City album from Strapping the Lad, all those songs recorded in 1 day. Every Strapping record the drums were recorded in 2 days maximum, kind of thing.
That's wild. I can't believe with that injury, with not being able to like move, you were still able to like drum on the kit. That's like crazy to me.
That was crazy. Yeah. That's just the force of will You know, like, I
Yeah.
make sure that I get this done because it's, you know, the session never moves forward until the drummer's done. You know, we weren't
Right.
trying to click track or anything like that. So you have to have those drums done before anybody else gets to do anything. And so that's where a lot of that pressure is on the drummer back in those days. Nowadays, that pressure isn't really so much there because I mean, you can have an entire album completed and then you come in to do the drums because it's all the click track. And like I remember Death Clock's Doomstar Requiem, the clock opera, much of that was already done to click track. That's one of those. That's one of those examples where I'm like, I'm learning the songs on the plane flight coming home from whatever tour I was on, and then the next morning, you know, I arrived that night. Next morning, I'm driving up to from San Diego to LA to track the entire record in a day or two because I remember when I tracked that album. This was in like it was supposed to be released on like in October, you know, like for Halloween, right around there. This was in September when I was recording drums, and usually things don't work like that. Usually you got your album done 6 months before it's released, but they had all the animation was ready to go and everything was ready to go. So that album was done to a click track. So I just came in and played drums to the click track to a lot of completed tracks, which was really helpful. You know, if you give the drummer as much information as you can, oh, here's where the vocals go. Here's where one little vocal sticks out. Let me kind of put an accent right on that thing. I love that. You know, I'd much rather have it out. You do everything, put it in the click track, let me come in, and then I've just got it done. I got to do the Bear McCreary albums, all that stuff. Usually he sends me over completed things, and that's really cool. I'm able to, you know, accentuate a lot of the drums to push things, you know, push dynamics and create dynamics around vocals, around like certain riffs or things. And so that's how that works. And so just yeah, having symbolic, you know, you gotta get this, you gotta get it done.